Hello, it's July 24, 2020. Happens to be my anniversary, so happy anniversary, Minik. We'll see each other when I get home, and we're going to take some days off next week, closer to her birthday. Go up to my brother's cottage, respecting social distancing, don't worry. We'll bring all of our stuff. We won't stop anywhere along the way, just a straight drive down. But right now, we're going to concentrate on some yoga, and like I said yesterday, we're going to start with some breathing exercises. So come to a comfortable cross-legged sit. If you're sitting on a chair on the edge of your bed, that's fine as well. We're going to focus on the breathing right now. Relax your arms, bring your wrists onto your knees or into your lap. Then inhale, stretch the crown of your head up towards the ceiling. Relax. Find the natural curves in your back. Find your head balanced over your shoulders. Release your hips, relax them. Now try to bring your natural breath. So no matter where you normally breathe, try to develop the habit of naturally breathing into your belly. And as the belly gets full, you feel the ribs expand. And as the ribs get full, the collarbones lift up. Not every breath is a real deep inhale where everything gets filled and everything gets emptied. And if you inhale with your belly, then the air goes all the way down. It fills as much of the lungs as you actually take in. And you get used to this, which is then very useful when you're doing other things, whether it's bicycling, climbing stairs, or anything else where you really need to have lung capacity, singing, playing a musical instrument that includes blowing through your mouth, that sort of thing. Just come to trying to breathe that way, but trying to make that normal so that you're not forcing yourself anymore. So we're just doing a normal depth breath. We're not dropping the belly forward and taking a lot of air. We're not squeezing the belly all the way back to the spine on the exhale. We're taking a normal amount of air, but doing it into the belly, the ribs. And then at the end, just a slight lifting of the collarbones. Now do that same kind of breathing, but now we're going to turn it into more of a breathing exercise. Going to inhale for a count of 4, exhale for a count of 8. Still a normal amount of air, not a huge deep breath, but enough into your belly that your ribs get used, enough into your ribs so that your collarbones lift up a little bit. So a normal depth breath, but timed differently. 4 counts for the inhale, 8 counts for the exhale. Keep on going. It feels very calming. If ever you need to calm down, just counting your breath. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Keeps you focused on what's happening. It relaxes everything. It relaxes your mind, but it keeps it focused on something that is very easy to do, which is a meditation or a form of meditation on its own. Do it for 3 more cycles. and release. Start swaying side to side, rolling over to one side, down to the front, to the other side and back up. Use your arms, use your shoulders, do lots of movements just to get everything from your lower spine up to your shoulders loose. Feel your lower back stretch slightly as you lean forward. Notice how your knees move and your hips. Nice deep movements. The end of the next cycle, as you inhale and come up to vertical, pause briefly and then exhale and come down to the left. Everything else is the same. Your arms, your shoulders are moving. Your nose scrapes the floor, maybe. Two more cycles going to the left. And then inhale, come up. Some of us are going to go on hands and knees. Others of us will stay seated pose. We're doing cat-cow, and as you know, you can do this from seated as well. It's a little bit more effort, I guess. Here you can use your gravity, and you're not using your muscles as much as sort of relaxing, lifting your head, your belly drops. Inhale. Exhale. Roll your tailbone under, arch your back. Inhale, cow. Exhale, cat. If you're doing this seated, because now the weight of your torso, keep on going while I talk, because the weight of your torso is sitting on the end of your spine and inserting into your hips, especially when you do the cat version of the seated cat-cow. There's a lot of pressure being put on the lower part of the spine. When you're doing this on your hands and knees, there is no pressure. Your shoulders and your hips are taking your weight. So be very careful when you're doing this seated that you don't overdo either the cat or the cow, that you do it consciously with your hands on your knees to support yourself. Two more times. Arch your back. Inhale. And come back to table. If you're seated, you're seated. If you're seated, both hands are going to go overhead. You interlace your fingers and you push with vigor upwards. If you're in cat-cow, you raise right arm and left leg. Try not to let your belly drop. Hold this pose, squeezing your shoulders. People that are seated with their hands in the air, remain there. Everybody else drops down to cat or to table pose, and then inhale, lift left leg. Sorry, right leg, left arm. Don't drop your belly. And release. Everybody can slide back to child's pose, leaving their fingertips on the floor, palms raised like teepees. Bring your head down to the ground if it works. Keep your arms strong and stiff, so you get a stretch in the shoulders here. Release. Everybody come to table just briefly before pushing to downward facing dog. Keep your knees bent if your hamstrings are still tight, and loosen things up by walking out your dog. And then come back to seated or kneeling while I demonstrate something. I've got chairs, I've got tables in here. I can demonstrate things that I can't do when I'm out in the field. if downward facing dog is not for you, downward facing dog can also be done on a table or it can be done on a chair. You put your hands on the surface that you've got. I'm going to try not to crush any electronics. You walk your hips back so that you can extend your arms and drop your torso. Here I'm in downward facing dog, but my head is still at the same level as my heart. I don't get the rush of blood to my head. I get opening in my shoulders. I get a stretch in my hamstrings. I get a stretch in my calves, and this is perfectly fine. If I don't have a desk or a chair and I do have a wall, I can obviously do the same thing. I'm just going to demonstrate. You just have your hands on the wall like this. Your hands go up the wall and you get more of the downward dog feel because of the hand position. So if downward dog on the ground is not for you, use the wall, use a chair, use something that you've got around you. So now that I've been yakking a little bit and you've been sitting, let's go back to downward facing dog. And if you want, do it on the wall, do it on a chair, do it on the edge of your bed. And that counts for every single time we go into downward facing dog. I won't be able to repeat it every single time, but remember, whenever I'm in this, you can do this in a version that works for you. And then release, and everybody just comes to seated. We're going to skip all the standing poses today just because we're going to skip all the standing poses today. Why not? Let's start with some hip openers, a nice easy one, soles of the feet together. Nice distance. I always sort of use my forearm as a measuring guide here, make sure my hips are that far away. Knees are open, aim my face or my forehead at the soles of my feet. Grab a hold of my toes and slowly let things open up. While I lean forward, I engage the outside edge of my hips to try to encourage my knees to stay close to the floor. Those of you who remember the session that I did with Noah where we started to move into turtle pose, if you'd like to do that, you can. So you separate your feet, you lean forward, you put your arms underneath your thighs and point them backwards. And then again, round the crown of your head, or you round your head and aim it for the floor. You obviously have to keep your arms engaged so that you don't overextend your elbows. In fact, keep them slightly bent. To release, lift yourself up, slide your hands out. And let's sit back, extend your legs, roll in and out. So those of you that have very tight hips, I would suggest doing the four pose, as we all know how that works. And if your hips allow it, even if one knee comes floating up. So if you can bring your shin, the shin of one leg, parallel with the front of the mat and on the ground, and that sit bone, or both sit bones can stay on the ground while the right ankle comes over to the knee, even if it sits up high like this. That's not a problem. If you're there, sit nice and tall and then squeeze yourself into that knee that's up in the air. That knee can come further down, then it comes further down. It's not mandatory. What we're trying to do is get to that point someday. Remember to engage your shin so that the stress is in the hip and not in the knee. Sit nice and tall. And enjoy the big stretch in your hips. If you're here and you figure I'm not feeling anything, lean forward, put your weight on your ankle and your knee through your elbows, and then consciously relax your hips. And then feel free to come lower as your body allows. Inhale, come up, and either from the four pose or from the stacked log pose, take your right leg and put it behind you. We're going to come to pigeon. Hands on the ground, lift your hips, and either square that front shin with the mat or bring the heel in towards the hips a little bit, depending on how your knee feels and how tight your hip is. We're going to start in high pigeon. If you can, your right foot sort of hitches you further back, and then you can put hand on knee, hand on ankle or sole of foot. Come up nice and high, separate your shoulders, long neck, relax your hips, tuck your tailbone under. Now here, your hip muscles are going to actively try to engage and keep you from sinking lower. So you're going to have to relax them. You're going to have to tell them to let go and loosen. The minute you do that, you will feel things loosen. You'll feel your hips sink down a little bit lower. If you don't actively release them, you're going to be sitting higher than you really want to, and you're going to be keeping those muscles tight. They will still lengthen, they will still stretch, but it will take longer. You want gravity to be your friend, helping you out here. And then if this is for you, you come down to low pigeon. And then if you like, extend your left arm overhead. Take your right arm, snake it underneath, and bring your right shoulder to the floor. This is quite an intense stretch for the left hip. Don't forget to release it and relax it. Let's come out of that. Put your left hand underneath your nose. Take your left heel, bring it in closer to your hips. And then turn around, grab your right foot and squeeze it in for what's commonly known as screaming pigeon. Drop your hips, stretch the front of your right leg. Let your hips relax, release. And let that foot go without snapping it. And I'm going to push to downward facing dog, just briefly. And then come back to seated. Same sequence on the other side. So we do a 4 now with, what leg was it, the right leg? Yeah, the right leg. There we go. So you're either with a 4 with the right leg, or the right leg is on the floor, shin parallel with the front of the mat, left foot across. And remember, where your knee ends up is not that important. The thing is you want to feel a stretch. Be very careful. You see how my ankle or the end of my shin is on the end of my thigh. That is because if it were further in, you see how my foot twists? That would give me too much stress on the outer edge of my foot and the ligaments. There are virtually no muscles that you really need to ever stretch on the side here. So we don't really want to stress the ligaments by turning the foot up. And if this works, you lean forward. Now we push our way to pigeon, so come up, take the left foot, put it behind you. Take your time to settle down into pigeon. And once you're there, don't forget, release consciously. Relax the hips, tell them to let go. If you've ever seen it, like we mentioned the other day, think of that Calvin and Hobbes cartoon where the furniture relaxes and suddenly goes all cubist. A nice sigh. If you listen hard, your hips will sigh when you relax them and you get to sink lower. And if you like, you can come down to low pigeon. And then right hand can come overhead, left hand snakes under left shoulder to the ground. Don't forget to release the right hip when you do this. And then come up, right hand underneath your nose, pull the right heel in a little bit, and then flip up the left foot, grab it, squeeze it down. Relax the front of your thigh, turn your hips so that they're square with the front of the mat again. The weight is on the top of your thigh, so it's not on your kneecap. If it is, you've got to shift your hips or your legs so that you're on the end of your thigh. Relax without snapping. Push back to downward facing dog. Walk it out. Cross your legs, come to seated, do a forward bend, nice relaxing pose. Sit with your legs straight, your feet just naturally pointing up. Lean forward until you feel a stretch in your hamstrings, let your head go. Your back is rounding, you can hold on to something as an anchor point and then just relax. The backs of your knees are still tight. If you still feel it only there and nowhere else, do bend your knees. If you feel this behind your neck or down your back, along what you could call the posture muscles, that's an indication that for most of the day your posture is possibly not very good. I use the term good there not as a judgmental thing, but as a short form for something like not in conformity with the natural curves of your back. Let's do the opposite. Hands behind you. Good foot, 13, 14 inches. Don't ask me what that is in meters. Sorry, I'm a child of the 70s. Roll your shoulders back. Lift your collarbone so you're stretching already here. And then all you need to do is lift your hips and push them over your ankles. Bring them back down. Cross your ankles. We'll do a very simple twist. Do this with your right shin in front. Left hand on right knee, turn to the side. Switch your ankles. Right hand on left knee, left hand in behind. And release. Extend your legs, extend your arms. Sit nice and tall. Keep your arms extended in front of you as a counterweight as you slowly, very, very slowly roll down. Try to do it vertebra by vertebra, keeping your collarbones looking as much as possible forward. Your shoulder blades touch the ground, your arms can come overhead. And then your shoulders roll down. And then let your arms just fall down to the sides. Feet separate and roll open and relax for corpse pose. Slowly bring some feeling back to your fingers and toes. And inhale, reach your arms overhead. Give yourself a big stretch. Tuck your knees into your chest. Round your back and rock side to side, up and down a little. Drop your feet to the floor, roll over to your right side. And slowly, using just your arm strength, push your way up to seated. Cross your ankles. When you do that, chances are you've done it the way that's just usual for you. So switch the position of your shins. Rest your hands on your lap or on your knees. Extend the crown of the head. Release. Find the natural curves. Find your head nice and balanced. A deep inhale. Bring your hands together. Namaste. Thank you very much for joining me. I will try to record something tomorrow. We'll be out in the field for that, out by the tent. But I don't know how that's going to work just because of internet. So if the internet is not working again, then there will be nothing new on Sunday, but there will be then something new on Monday.